do this, gang. We are live. So let me make sure I got everything in order. I do. So let's do this. Can you what's up, DR?
Are we going to mention the event for cover art today? Because I did
You're
give
welcome
you the
to
link.
if we can squeeze it in.
Yeah.
You're welcome to.
Okay.
Ariel's a friend of ours. Okay, let's do this. And everyone mute, please. Good morning, podcasters. Today is Thursday, June 25th, 2026. And today, podcast cover art, first impressions, and listener psychology. Before anyone hears your voice, they see your show. We're digging into real-world cover art questions to find out what actually helps people choose your podcast. So if you're listening live on Clubhouse, hit the share button, top right-hand side of the screen, and share it however Clubhouse lets you. And if you're catching us via podcast, YouTube, etc., please share this episode with a fellow podcaster. And now give us about 30 seconds, and we'll get things rolling. Thanks for being here. The Podcasting Morning Show is powered by Ironic Media, helping podcasters launch, polish, and grow great shows. And by Content Creators Accountant, helping creators build real business behind their content. Good morning again, Podcasting Morning Show. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Mark Ronick, and currently on stage with me, we have my co-hosts, DR Fay, Ralph Estep, Sid Meadows, BC Babbles, and also Dan Schultz has joined us from the audience. Good morning to all of you. And by the way, if you want to learn more about my co-hosts, just go to podcastingmorningshow.com/people. I haven't said that in a long time, so I thought it was important to remind you. You can learn all about all of the cast and crew by just going to that link. And yeah, enjoy. So with that, today we're going to get into cover art. But before we do, I want to share something with you. I got a little gift in the mail. So if you aren't watching us on video, you can go to podcastingmorningshow.com/join us and find the different ways to do that. Just choose between YouTube and LinkedIn. That's the easiest. And this comes from here, this box of mine here. I got to show it this way because I didn't block out the address here. But this comes from our old friend of the community, Chuck Taylor. Now, if you listened to episode 500, you met Chuck Taylor if you didn't know him prior, but he was one of the OGs of the formerly known as Podcasting Morning Chat, and a good friend as well, and a great contributor to the community. So Chuck is into 3D printing, which I know if I got one of those, I'd probably get pretty hooked pretty quickly. And I just don't feel like investing the money into it right now. But Chuck has, and he plays with it in all sorts of ways and said that he was making something for us. And he actually had told me about this prior to episode 500, prior to our name change. And I know this has something to do with our podcast name.
Now, for you that aren't watching it, you got to picture this. Mark has a big box, a pair of red scissors, and I'm just hoping he's not going to cut himself. You know, it's kind of like that running with scissors thing here. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a visual so you can see that if you're on the audio.
Thank you.
But the anticipation is palpable. It's amazing.
I'm sure you are waiting on the edge of your seat. And you try to open a box quickly on a live show, and it doesn't always go so well as you can hear. All right, let me get these red scissors again. Come on.
Yeah, I'm watching on the video, and he's either going to cut his earbuds cord or himself.
I was worried about that, Sid. I was worried about that. All right, so we've got some bubble wrap here. It's kind of light. Let's see. Okay, it's substantial. It's a square. I know exactly what. This is so cool. All right.
The smile on Mark's face is amazing.
All right. It is a podcasting morning chat light up sign. Now, granted, we've changed our name to Show, and that doesn't matter. This is Legacy right here. This is coming from Legacy and a Legacy item here. I will take this. I could plug it into something right here at my desk. So let me see if this works.
Electronics in a live environment. This is very dangerous, friends.
It is. And
we don't know what's going to happen.
I asked Chuck to join us. He couldn't do it. All right, this is plugged in. He couldn't do it today. He is a radio
Chuck
personality.
Taylor, a hell of a pair of sneakers too. I mean, his sneakers are fantastic, right?
Yes. All right, here it is, lit up and everything. I don't know if you can really tell how
we can't because of the lighting.
Yeah, because of the lighting, but it is here. If I turn it off, how do I turn it off?
Awesome.
The on-off button doesn't seem to go off. Wait,
oh, it kind of blinked.
Yeah, there you go.
It's doing something, Mark.
Oh,
very nice.
There you go.
Yeah, very nice.
Awesome.
Love this. Thank you to Chuck
awesome.
Taylor. This is so cool. This actually could even just go right on my desk. It's it's about a little bigger than my own hand, so this could go right on my desk, and I think that is exactly where it will go. We will see. I'll play with this. But thank you to Chuck Taylor. That is awesome. Looks very cool, and yeah, let's keep
I'd
moving.
love to know some of the other things that he has made with this 3D printer that's like really out of the norm.
Let me.
He made a slinky the other day.
Did he?
A slinky? Oh,
yeah, he
cool.
made a slinky.
Sorry. Hold on a second. Hold on. Everybody, hold on. I was trying to pull up his TikTok, and and of course the first video that popped up started playing. So my apologies. Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, no, he had a slinky. He had what was sitting on the desk. It was a yellow. It looked like a cup. Honestly, I thought it was a water cup. And then the next image showed it a slinky, and his comment was something about, "I love making childhood toys with 3D printing." It was really cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you to Chuck Taylor. And yeah, you can just search for Chuck Taylor on TikTok. And you know what? I'll put something in the show notes so you can follow him and see all of the different things that he's doing with his 3D printer.
Cool.
And now, speaking of Sid, yesterday you shared something with us about you were going to change your titles on specific episodes. I'd love for you to kind of reset that conversation for us. So if somebody missed yesterday, they're in the know, and then share some of the early results that you've seen from that change, please.
Yes. So good morning, everybody. So I, at the beginning of this year, did a lot of keyword research and changed my keywords, and we started strategically doing things all in the hopes to help create discovery. Well, then we talked about how Apple and Spotify do search. Every time I go search, I'd get pissed off because I wasn't showing up, and I've done all this work and I'm not showing up. So yesterday morning early, I was listening to Courtney Elmer's show, the top 100 secrets or top secrets of 100, whatever it's called, right? Sorry, I'm butchering your name, Courtney. The name of your show, the secrets of a top 100 podcast. There you go. And I love listening to her show. And she talked about changing the title of your show and adding keywords in the title of your show, not episodes. So yesterday I went in and changed the title of my show, the Trend Report dash insights on office furniture, contract interiors, and workplace design. And those are three of my top keywords. Prior to that, I basically was not showing up anywhere. And if I did, I'd have maybe one episode that would be way down the list in the top results. But on the shows, I was not showing up anywhere. And I'm not sure why this morning, early this morning, I'm listening to Courtney again, and I decided to just open up Apple and search, and I put in office furniture, and I'm number 4 with that keyword.
Wow.
I put in workplace design. I'm number 4 with that keyword. And then I put in contract interiors, and I'm number 1. And yesterday I wasn't showing up at all. So the
Wow.
messaging here, the messaging here is adding a tagline to the title of your show is definitely going to help improve your discovery when people are searching for your keywords inside of the players. So
Right.
that led me to a full 30, 45-minute deep dive on my keywords and searching every one of them. I made a spreadsheet. I searched every one of them on Apple and then every one of them on Spotify. And now I have identified which are my really weak keywords, which are the medium keywords, and which are the strong ones. So I know what I need to do differently. I think I'm getting some ideas about what I need to do differently as we continue to enhance this. What's really interesting about this is every keyword I put in, I showed up on Spotify in every keyword except one. On Apple, I'm missing on, I have 12 keywords or 13 keywords. I'm missing on one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I'm missing on 7 keywords on Apple, but I'm showing up on Spotify on all of them but two. Sorry, the spreadsheet wasn't big enough. So that's pretty good result
Yeah.
in just a day. And now I'm feeling okay. Now I understand some of these things because we talked about this on the show before. We've talked about changing your
Yep.
titles and
Mhm.
and I've done all of this. Not well, one of the things I'm doing with my titles is I'm changing them all to questions. We're testing that for the month of July and August. And that was something we talked about a couple of weeks ago here.
Mhm.
So all of my titles will be questions in July and August, and I'm going to see if it has any impact in the listens, plays, downloads. So this is an ever evolving process, that's for sure.
Yeah, and really impressive. And I mean, I'll just say surprising. Like within a day to see that kind of jump is really surprising. And I don't know. I don't want. I guess one thing I should say is don't necessarily expect that to happen to you when you make that change. And if you're going to make that change, really be strategic about it.
Right.
That's really important. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Dr?
Well, just the tagline. I have always been a big proponent of the tagline with keywords, maybe to tell you who it's for. Yeah, I mean it's that tagline is like everything. It's a piece of gold.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, and I'm a little embarrassed to say it because I did that too, not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago, maybe closer to 2 months ago. I added a tagline to our show title. And now that I'm thinking about it, I need to figure out when I did that. And then I need to pay attention to my numbers because my numbers has been growing. I think I've shared from time to time that our numbers have been growing. And I wonder if there's a correlation there. So I'm gonna dig into that a little more and I'll report back. Thank you for sharing that, Sid. And one more thing before we dive into cover art this morning. Sid, you sent me a screenshot the other day while you were listening to a podcast on Apple. And I was curious, would you share what you found too? Because we think we might have discovered a new feature with the new podcast player by Apple.
Yeah, I was listening to Buzzcast, and I typically when I'm listening, I have my phone in my pocket or it's laying around somewhere, right? I'm not looking at the screen. And I happened to look at the screen and because I wanted to see if they were doing video, and this was a bit of an older episode. And so they had not started their video yet because I'm just interested in learning about the video thing. And I noticed on the screen they were talking about, I forget, like ABC podcast. Because in this episode, they were talking about a lot of podcasts. And they were talking about ABC podcasts. And I noticed on the screen right below their cover art was Apple had put a link to that show with a plus button so that I could follow that show. And then if you went into if you went into the actual episode and you looked at the um the episode, there's a thing there that says featured in this show, and there were all of the podcasts that they talked about were listed right there.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they did it or if Apple's doing it, but I was really surprised to see it on the screen where I could very easily click follow. Right. And so I'm interested to know, like, is that Apple thing? Did Buzzsprout do something different? Did they create that feature on there that said, you know, um, featured in the show with all the podcast episodes? So, but I was like, wow, this is actually a really cool feature.
I mean, I would have to say, without really knowing yet where this comes from, and I'd have to say it's probably a combination of both, because Buzzsprout has to be able to provide the ability to take advantage of a feature that Apple offers, right? So I think that it could be something that Apple started offering and Buzzsprout has incorporated into their platform, so that podcasts can do that sort of thing. It's really cool, and it's a really smart thing. So in a nutshell, while Sid's listening to a podcast, other podcasts are being recommended to him within the player itself. It's just popping up right there. Small, it's like a
Yeah.
small little banner.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ask them because they have a feature. Buzzcast has a feature where I can send them a message. So I'm gonna go send them a message and ask them about
Oh,
it
perfect
and
idea.
how do they do it. Because whenever I mention somebody else's podcast or an episode, we always drop the links in it,
Yeah.
down at the bottom of the show notes. But featured in this episode makes me wonder, is that something that we should be taking advantage of that would then not just promote other people's shows, but promote other episodes that I talk about from my show? Right. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I'm going to do a little bit of homework and see what they have to say. But, this is a very interesting opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Sid. And Ralph, you had one more thing before we dive into cover art this morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a shout out to Loesch, the person that I mentioned yesterday in the business bite. She reached out to me on LinkedIn, and we're actually going to have her on the show on July 14th. She's a strategist for do-it-yourself independent podcasters, and I thought she'd be a great connection, but she really appreciated us talking about her article from Pod News on the show, and I just wanted to let everybody know that she is now a fan of the show.
That's awesome. Very cool. I love how we are... I guess this web is continuing to grow, and we are getting in touch with lots of different podcasters and podcast pros, and it's adding a lot to this show. And Ralph, you've been a big part of adding that value. So thank you for finding, or not necessarily finding the guests, but connecting with these guests and bringing them to the show. Appreciate you.
You're very welcome, my friend.
Yeah. So let's see. I saw one more. Alex had something, and then we will dive in.
Yeah, I just found it interesting what Sid was talking about. It's almost like the chapters in a way
Yes.
with YouTube, and I think it's a brilliant idea. It's just I was just listening to it. I'm like, yeah, you could really a lot of podcasters could benefit from it. That's all. It just popped in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Okay, I'll hit the whoosh again. There it is. A lot of podcasters think about artwork or cover art, thumbnail images, usually once, and that's usually when they launch, right? They make the square cover image, upload it to their host, and then they move on. But now these visual decisions keep coming up, like, do you need custom artwork for every episode? Should your YouTube thumbnails match your podcast branding? Should Spotify video episodes have different thumbnails, right? Because now that they have video, that's something to think about. Should you have your face in the cover image? I know how there are some people that feel strongly in both directions there. Should your guest be on the episode cover image? How much text is too much? There are lots of questions. And for indie podcasters, the real question is usually, what's actually worth doing? Today, we're going to work through a few questions from Reddit, from YouTube creators, and even one of my clients that came up just this week. And I want to hear what the room thinks. So first, if I was wondering, do you guys think it would be valuable to share some of the basics, like, for example, like what the specs are for cover art and some best practices, or should we just dive into the mailbag? I'm looking for a community decision here. BC, what do you got?
I think that would be really helpful, especially when you consider the fact that depending on where you put your podcast, you might have to have more than one aspect ratio for artwork ready to publish it out properly.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Then I will just share a couple of things. Who else? Somebody else is.
Yeah, I think having the basics is important, but I really think it's more important what kind of genre your podcast is, because it really, what I do versus what Ralph is going to do could be two totally different things, and I say that because when you're reviewing shows or a movie, it's about that more than it is maybe the person. It just depends on the situation, but I think genre has a lot to do.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, especially for the episode cover images or thumbnails, I could see that. And I think that there are some basic rules of thumb that we can all follow no matter what the genre is. And especially when we talk about the specs, right? Like, for example, I think the best rule of thumb, if you are an audio or if you're uploading your audio podcast to be distributed to Apple, Spotify, etc., the specs are pretty much the same across the board, right? 3,000 by 3,000 pixels, a square 1 by 1. That's the size that you want. Right? The safe range you can go is as low as 1,400 by 1,400. But I say just go as high res as possible. And I just go with that 3,000 by 3,000. But, Spotify thumbnail images, that's like a 1920 by 1080, right? That's now the horizontal 16 by 9 size. Right? And then YouTube has minimum 1280 by 720, and they actually recommend bigger, 3840 by 2160. Right, so these are all things, and YouTube also, if you are connecting your RSS feed to it, it's just going to pull your cover image from your provider over to YouTube. Before I go any further, Dan, I saw you had raised your hand. Did you want to add anything?
Oh, just maybe you can talk about doing tests. Like I usually test my cover art every 3 months. I can talk a little bit about that if you want.
Yeah, and is that specifically your episode cover art? Because we all have to be, I think, really clear when we're talking about this, because these are two different areas. So is that your episode cover art that you test every few months, or your series?
The episode cover art is I change every season, and it's going to be the exact same, because in our again, everything depends because it's a podcast question. But because our podcast happens to be where we read one banned book every season, that is the episode cover art, is a custom version of that book cover. But I'm talking about the general show, which is going to help you get more listeners because it's the discoverability part of the equation. I usually try to change that once every 3 months and then gauge, well, what happened after I changed it? What happened in the next 3 months? Does it make sense to go backwards or try to improve it more?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. That's really helpful. And there is a question here from the mailbag. Well, I pulled this from Reddit. The gist of it says, just curious if people keep all their thumbnail art the same or if there's an advantage to changing it. And so, Dan, is there an advantage to changing it? Have you seen an advantage for yourself, for your show?
Yeah. And it's really neat. Like, sometimes they say life is hard, wear a cup. If you do your own artwork or have any opinions about anything in life, podcasting is not for you, because it's like ultimately it doesn't matter what you think looks good. It's ultimately what is going to get people to, click play, right? So the first version of our cover art I thought was awesome, and it kind of worked, but I didn't know how long. I didn't know what I didn't know until I tested it like a year later, and I was like, oh my God, if I would just change this, all of a sudden it jumped up 20%. And I'm like, holy cow. So now I just try to do it every 3 months. I try to make a change, one change. And I just, like, you can literally change your show overnight. It's exactly what Sid was saying. I tinker with my keywords all the time, and I can make a change, go grab a sandwich and come back, and I'm the #1 ranked show on that keyword that fast. It's the same kind of with cover art, although it takes a lot longer. You can't get those instant results. And one more thing, it's really unfortunate because Spotify just fixed their discovery system so much it screwed it up for everyone, at least people like us, people like, when I say us, I mean like the smaller podcaster, the indie podcaster. I mean, they used to have this discovery funnel with 3 very succinct metrics that you could gauge on. They just combined them into 2, and it really screwed everything up. But that is how I would test. I'd go into their discovery funnel process. Now there's a new way that I do it, but you make a change, let that run for a quarter, 3 months, and then go back in and see if the numbers change. And if they did, that's your new baseline. And then think about how can you go in and make one more change? How can you make it better? And then run that for the next 3 months. And slowly but surely, you should be constantly rising.
Good stuff. Thank you, Dan. And Sid, I think you had a question for Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I was wondering, Dan, what's the measurement that you're looking at to determine if these changes are being successful? Is it just the listens and the plays, or there's something else that you're looking at?
So the easiest place to find this, unfortunately, is Spotify. And I don't get a ton of, I mean, I do okay on Spotify, but we don't get a ton of people in Spotify. But it has consistently been I don't want to say consistent. It's been a consistent data point because they used to do stuff pretty good. Now they just changed it. So if you go into your Spotify, excuse me, for creators, you can go over to Discovery, and there is oh, what is it called? There's like a conversion under Discovery, and
Mm.
now of course my screen isn't loading. And you just want this number to be as high as you can. Like if it's under 3, and I can't even say that because I had to reverse engineer something. I multiply the number that you see there by 3. I just hate that they screwed it up. I hate when people take a good thing and then keep improving it, like the people over at Tide, new and improved Tide. Like we already got the grass stains and blood stains nailed out. How about if you put your best guys on cancer or AIDS or something?
Right.
And
Yeah.
Spotify, how about if you guys just stop dinking around and screwing it up? Because I don't think Joe Rogan needs more data. Everyone listens to him. So there's no individual tweaks that he can make that is going to fix it. But for people like us, data is really hard to come by.
Yep. That
So you have to go, I got to log into Apple for this, Spotify for this, YouTube for that. No, I don't even use YouTube. YouTube is really good though, because it's Spotify copied them and they've been doing it for the last year and a half. Now they stopped doing it, which is that interest to click ratio. So, and that basically means Spotify is going to show your cover art to X number of people. And there's a percentage of the people who actually see the cover art that actually click on it. And that's the number that you want to grow. And now they just kind of combined that number and another number, and it makes it so much more difficult to figure out. But you basically want to take one thing at a time. And like that thing about, well, they showed my cover art to 1,000 people and only 13 people clicked on it. I don't care what happens after they clicked because that's a different problem you want to fix down the road,
yeah.
right? But how do you improve that? How do you improve the number of people to actually click? And I find the best way to do it is just take take your main keyword, go to Apple and Spotify, type your keyword in, take a screenshot of the top of the fold shows. So, Spotify has, I think, like 24. Apple, I think, has 12. I don't know. On your desktop, do this, not on your phone. And then take those images and basically go into your, AI of choice and basically say, here's my current cover art. Here's what the search results look like for this main keyword. Tell me what's overused. Tell me what stands out. Give me 3 specific changes that I can move the needle. Like, you just want it to pop off the screen. It's all about differentiation. Like it's like literally get your mind and your opinion out of it. And just let people or robots smarter than you tell you what to do with this.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. And by the way, James, I know you are on stage here, and just curious, did you have something you wanted to add to the conversation, or you're just here for the conversation? Just checking in with you. There he is.
I'm always here for the conversation. But cover art was a big deal for me when I had Across the Pond Sports Network, because I had to make sure like it was all kind of branded the same way. And I think it was John said in the comments, if you've got a face for radio, use a cartoon, which is exactly what I did. Across the Pond was very cartoonish, had a style, but if you're going to have multiple podcasts, like, and they're the same thing, because I know some people have different podcasts and that do different things, but because all mine were sports related and we kind of built it as a network, we did, or I did, make the decision that everyone would be a cartoon. And to be fair, everyone loved that because everyone was like, "Yeah, I don't really want my actual face
Hmm.
while I'm watching while I'm listening to a podcast." So actually, the cartoon version worked well, but the brand recognition of keeping all of those logos similar, maybe different colors, different themes, like orange was WNBA, NFL was blue, like those kind of things. Keeping the text, the cartoon versions of the hosts and stuff the same.
Yeah.
The brand recognition was amazing because when I went down to Wembley to cover Jags Broncos when I got media credentials, was I forgot my wallet. And they
Oh,
asked me for my ID when I got to the desk. And I was like, oh no, I've like left my wallet in the car. It's like 20 minutes away. And this woman came from nowhere, never seen her in my life before. And she goes, what's the problem? And the guy goes, oh, he's left his ID in his car. And she goes, oh no, I know him. He's James Scott. He's with Across the Pond. Just let him
wow.
in. And that for me, like one thing I was like, wow, the NFL really do vet you. Because like, wow,
Yeah.
where did she come from? But then second, I was like, well, she knows, and she knows I'm putting out good content so that the NFL likes. So like, but it was I kind of put that down to the branding because otherwise, if I just had a mundane logo, like didn't have faces or didn't even have cartoons or wasn't recognizable, then I would have had to walk 20 minutes back to my car, get my wallet with my ID, and then walk 20 minutes back.
That's pretty cool. I love that. And it's such a great point. And yeah, I think, look, I know that John's joking a lot in the chat about, face for radio. And I think he said something about if you're 7 or higher, then put yourself into your cover image. But if not, yeah, if you're lower than a 7, but he's kidding. And I think that there's something to be said about, yeah, choosing something like a cartoon as your branding and really leaning into that. I mean, we do that to a degree, right? Like, our main cover image, the logo, if you will, that does not have anything cartoon. And for a long time, it did have a real image of me. And now when we changed the name, we're just going with the actual text, and we removed me from it for now. We'll see. I kind of go back and forth with that sometimes. But for my episode cover images, our episode cover images, you'll see that we use these Pixar style images. And I know that it's working. I know that that brand recognition is working because people tell me so. Even colleagues like Dave Jackson, he tells me that whenever he's scrolling on the internet and he sees me, or on social media and he sees one of our cover images, he always stops. He said, I stop. I see what cartoon Mark is up to today. So it does catch attention sometimes doing something a little out of the ordinary as opposed to just using your photo. And I do think using your photo can be helpful too. Right. Because when people are scrolling, if they're just going to see text, they may keep scrolling. Right. But if there's a person associated with that text, it might make them stop, especially if you're a 7 or higher. Right, John? But yeah, I really think there's a lot to be said about that. Thank you for sharing that story, James. Very cool story as well. Does anyone want to add anything else as far as
Mark,
this
I want to
question?
jump in here, Mark, because I think the thing that I want to take it back up to 30,000 feet. I think with cover art, you have to think about this. It's the first handshake that you're going to have with your audience. And you got to think about it like it's a storefront. You're driving past at 35 miles an hour. Does the sign tell me something inside? So many people I've seen with cover art, they have way too much stuff on it. It's way too busy. And as you're scrolling through, you aren't going to catch it. You've got like a millisecond to catch them. So my advice to everybody doing cover art, whether it's the show art or the individual titles for the episodes, is to make sure that if I'm driving by at 35 miles an hour, I'm going to want to say, oh, I'm more interested in this, because they're not going to read your title. They're not going to read your description if the cover art doesn't grab them and pull them in.
I think that's a fair point, and I appreciate you raising that one, Ralph. Yeah. And I know there's there's a question in the mailbag here along those lines. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Give me a second. Well, Man, I can't find it. Oh, well. Well, somebody's off
Can I
mic. Go ahead, DR.
Yeah. So, I wanna use one of my clients as an example here. I had a client that was into robotics and animation and, automation. And what we did is that we took a look at all the podcasts that were in his genre, and for some reason, um, there was a lot of black and navy blue, dark, really heavy duty saturated colors. And I insisted that we go opposite. So we had a white cover with, the gear image on it. And because when someone is scrolling on their 6-inch screen and they have, maybe their 6-inch screen shows 3 or 4 of these tiny little squares, we're going to need something that jumps out. Now, my little saying, you've heard of SEO, you've heard of AEO. This is ECO, eye-catching optimization.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also people who use that really thin script font that looks so beautiful. Can't see it on a 6-inch screen. Cannot see it. Please don't use that on your cover art. Because it just it's a waste of real estate, basically. So use big, bold font, use colors that no one else is using in your genre, and stand out.
Yeah, ECO, and I think that does
ECO.
speak to what Ralph is saying too, right? It's that idea of having that attractive sign that's easy to
Mhm.
understand and know what you're getting if you're interested in that sign. And that's why we also preach about our podcast titles, names, right? Is to be as clear as you can for your show. Will somebody know what your show is about by looking at the cover art, by looking at the title? Do they know? For us, I mean, you could make an argument one way or another, podcasting morning show, but I think that overall, most people have an idea. It's a podcast morning show. They may not know exactly that this is a show that talks about podcasting, but they wouldn't be surprised either if they got curious and pressed play what they were going to get out of it. But so I would say, honestly, if I'm rating our own name, it's probably like a 6 or a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 because it's not perfectly clear as to what it is. So, yeah, I think it's really important to think about that. And that is, the title is part of your cover image, part of your cover art. So you have to think about all of that together. And if people don't understand, I'm curious if anybody here feels like, similar to me, that like my show kind of does, but it doesn't quite hit the nail on the head. I know for Ralph, like Ralph's is very clear. Content creator's accountant. We know what we're going to get.
Yeah, and I did that intentionally. And the reason I chose to put my beautiful face on it, because I'm above a 7, I hope. But no, I'm just being funny, is I believe there's a trust factor. When you put your face on something, I think it helps to build that relationship. And everything I do is about relationships. So it really depends on your show. But if you're trying to build a relationship with your audience, I think putting your face on there is actually a really good plan.
Can I just add into
Please.
that face thing, Ralph? 100% agree. And when I first started across the pond, I had actually exactly what DR described, a blue background with some yellow writing, looked horrible. And it was actually Katie Brinkley back in the day who said, "What you need something better. People buy into people. So if they can see you, they're going to buy into you and you're going to get more listeners that way." And funnily enough, when we changed the logos to the cartoons, even though it was a cartoon, it was still my face. People did start to buy into that way more. And yeah, we took a big bump in listeners when we changed the logo from the boring blue and yellow to like a really bold font, my face on it, even though I'm definitely not 7. But yeah, it worked really well. So to Ralph's point, it's like spot on. People buy into people, and if they can see you, you're more likely to buy into you.
I'm with you there. Absolutely. Thank you, James. And BC, you had something.
Yeah, I was just yesterday discussing with myself whether or not the name of my show uh, does really any kind of service to the show itself. The show is called Casual Babble, and I realized, you know what, it makes sense to me because I understand why I chose the words, but by itself, I need to do something to really let people know. Like to Ralph's earlier point, it's the first handshake. It doesn't really provide a hand to shake with by itself. So yesterday I added on a little tagline to the title where we make entrepreneurship make sense. So that at least brings in, while keeping the initial kind of whimsy, it brings that inherent purpose to the show.
That makes sense. And here's the thing, the challenge is that yes, we've been praising the idea of adding these taglines, and we see how well it worked for Sid right away, but you're not going to be able to really fit that on your cover art, right? And if that is that first handshake, people might not, they might be getting a soft handshake.
I think you can fit it on your cover art.
But can you really read
100%.
it? Can you really read it when it's shrunken down on a phone? That's my question. I'm not saying you can't. I'm asking that question. Can you really read it?
Challenge accepted.
But also, I'm gonna agree with you. I don't know that you can actually really read it, Mark, but also your cover art, the words on your cover art, as I understand them, are not searchable because it's an image, right? So if you use your keywords on your cover art, Google's not going to pick up those because it's not text. So it is, to Ralph's point earlier, it's the first hello, and protect it and make sure that it attracts. And I certainly would not overload it with words. And listen, I know my cover art needs work. It's on the list for us to do as we begin planning for season 8. I'm happy. I'm okay with it right now, but it needs work, and we'll get it fixed for the next season. But yeah, it's prime real estate.
Yeah, and
So
the thing I want to throw out there is if someone's misreading your show because of the art, you got to fix that.
Yeah.
Because if they don't understand what your show is and your artwork is taking them down a road where it's making it confusing, that's a positioning problem. And that's something you got to get fixed.
Packaging. But also when you, for instance, Libsyn, if you have the title of your podcast in Libsyn on that line of, the title of your podcast on the line, do you know what I'm saying? On the back end of Libsyn, I put the tag right there on that same line. So it is being indexed in that respect.
Yeah, but DR, what you're talking about and the artwork are two different things, because what you're talking about is for searchability. I 100% agree with you on searchability. You want to have that title with the subtitle and the tagline in it. For the artwork, though, honestly, I think you need no more than like 5 words.
Yeah.
If you go with any more than 5 words, people are flying past you at 55 miles an hour. They're not going to see it. That's my personal opinion. I just think that it's like when I see clients put billboards up on the side of the road, they want to stuff those with so many words. I'm like, dude, the person's driving by at 60 miles an hour. You might have 3 words. You might get 5. If you don't make that encapsulation in that, I think the same thing for these, because people are on their phone, they're scrolling through shows.
Right.
You got to grab something that grabs them. And
right. And that's why I went, as much as I hate a white background, we went with a white background for my client, and it's eye-catching. Someone will tap that and say, "What is that?" That's when it comes up bigger, and you can see that extra tag.
Yeah. So yeah, it works well for the second level, but
Right.
maybe not the first level.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, Ralph, excellent analogy as far as using billboards, right? Because it's kind of it feels very similar, right? Because like you said, people are driving 60, 70 miles an hour and it's passing them by quickly. And if we think about these billboards, think about it when you're on the highway and which billboards catch your attention, and then ask yourself why, right? Because it's probably very eye-catching, bold, bright. It's got big words and not very many words.
it's like the McDonald's one. It says, "I'm loving it."
Yeah.
In yellow words with their red background. You know exactly what that is, and it makes you feel a certain way.
Yes, and that's because the "I'm loving it," they've spent millions and millions of dollars on that campaign for us to know. Now, granted, again, when we talk about imagery, right? That billboard's going to say more than I'm loving it, right? The words are going to say I'm loving it, but we're going to see the images. We're going to see those fries and shakes or whatever it is they're
And see, I
promoting.
think you got to do the same thing with your cover art for your podcast. Is what is the emotion? What is the pain? What is the feeling behind what you're doing? Because your eyes are actually going to see that before they see the words. So I think you need to be mighty intentional in what that looks like behind the words.
Yeah. And I love the analogy because just like driving 60 miles an hour down the highway, that's kind of the same way that people are scrolling on the social media platforms, right? It's just quick flips, and it's the ones that are eye-catching that they're going to more likely stop on. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, and I see there's been some activity going on in the chat. I'm not going to sit here and try to catch up at the moment, but I see things are busy over there. Ralph,
I
have you
think the
been paying
central
attention?
question, I think the central question is John Domingo was asking, should the name of the podcast be in the episode art? And that's an interesting question because I don't know that it has to be, honestly, because you're going to see both things. So why waste the art with the name of the show? I'm not sure you have to do that, John. That's my personal opinion. I just don't think it's necessary.
It does make it really cluttered. It can make it really cluttered. And what we add the PMC logo. I have to go back and look. I feel like the last few may not have that, but I'll go back and look. But normally I add the Podcasting Morning Show logo in there. And I do it understanding that, again, if people are just scrolling through episodes, they're not seeing that logo. But to DR's point, at that point, once they click through, they'll be able to see that logo more. And the way I kind of look at it is that my show name is usually listed right next to or around the artwork. Apple, for example, has Podcasting Morning Show right next to the cover image of the episode or the series image. So I don't think it's that necessary to be in there.
And I think you also need to differentiate between two things. There's the show art and then the episode art. One of the things that I did recently is my team was just putting very simple episode titles or episode art. And it was just the title. I said, I don't like this. And we changed it. We put images on it. And I've seen a bump up in people looking at those now because we put like John Domingo does a great job of this actually. And he said that people send in the artwork that he uses. John, I got to be blunt, dude. It works because you want to see what John's crew is going to put up next because they put some crazy stuff out there, but it attracts your eye. It's a little too busy for a small thing, but if you were going on YouTube or you've got more real estate, I think it works better, but it definitely attracts your attention.
Yep. Thank you, Ralph. And I saw that Dave put in the chat, if the name is in the image, it makes it shareable outside your show. And yeah, I agree and disagree at the same time, only because I don't think people are just sharing my cover image alone, right? Like, and if they're sharing it, it's maybe attached to a social media post. And that post has my show name, that both as who the poster is and also within the text of the content of the post itself. So I don't know that. I just don't know how effective that really is. It can't hurt. So that's why I don't disagree. Like, yeah, in some cases, maybe somebody's only going to see that cover image, but I still don't know if that's going to stop them because now they saw my logo as part of the image.
And I think the bigger issue, though, Mark, is branding. And I think you have to be intentional in your branding. I think if you're all over the place and you got different colors every time and different fonts and all that kind of time, I think it breaks your brand. So that's one of the things that I've leaned into is branding. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And John here in the chat says the standard podcasting answer, it depends. Yes, totally agree with you there. Let's see. Now it's funny. We're hitting all of these questions from the mailbag and we haven't actually asked half of them. But that's okay. I want to see here, where haven't we gone yet? But I see we have some speakers, so maybe that's a better thing to do. Let's go first to Kate, who's on stage. Kate, what did you want to add to the conversation? Good morning and welcome.
Oh, thanks. So I was just gonna maybe add in, I'm sorry if I've got the wrong context because I've come in late in the conversation, but like anything within industries, you have to have a reference. Sorry, just give me 1 sec. Joe, can you turn that down, please? Sorry, my son's like listening really loud to
That's
music.
okay.
Yeah, the heat here is for us really hot, so he's finished school early. Yeah, like anything, whether it's music or public profiles in many industries, you kind of have to look at the industry standard and the say like the other accounts or other brands or businesses that you are basically inspired by within that genre. So you have to see what's working for them to basically choose how you're gonna then create your what is it called, like an avatar, is it? Or
The cover art, is that what you're talking about?
yeah, your thumbnail. So it has to be something that is, I'm trying to think of the word. Oh, the aesthetic of it. The aesthetic has to match what people expect within that market. So it's like a recognizable thing. So with the murder podcast, it's always usually dark with like a striking color across the banner. Um, Soccer, it's usually something that's easily recognizable. Um, Comedians, it's their face, and it's got to give you the vibe of basically the industry or the genre of what you are.
Yeah, it has to speak to that genre, to that.
And
Yeah,
Kate, I think what
that
you're getting
topic.
at is branding too. And we really appreciate that comment, because I think that's one of the important things we need to understand the genre you're in and understand the branding that you're going after. I think that's really valid points.
Absolutely, yeah. And Rez, you had something as well. Let me check in with you. We're a little short on time, so I want to try to keep it going.
Mark, hi. Sorry about that. I feel like I sound like Tony Robbins. My voice is,
Man, yeah, and I noticed it
um,
yesterday a little bit too.
So I was just gonna say, if you're using AI to create your cover art,
I do.
like okay, it's everybody, the whole world. I mean, if you're not using AI, but do you have to sort of, it's okay to embrace the fact that you're using AI, like you're not hiding it, right?
I'm not hiding it. I publicly say it. I mean, I can't. It's going to be too cluttered to like put some kind of disclaimer on the cover art itself, right? But I am very publicly open about it. I've shared multiple times that I use ChatGPT to create every
Okay.
episode cover image.
And when you're putting something on Instagram that you did with AI, should you leave the AI tag on it,
Yes.
or you should?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, if I upload something to Instagram that's AI generated and it asks me, is this AI generated? I say yes every time. I'm not going to hide that fact. And if I do it on LinkedIn just has some kind of AI detector, and it automatically adds a little bug to it saying that this was AI generated. So I say yes, be as transparent as possible.
And that's good for both the algorithm as well as just ethics, right?
Yeah, because what might happen is, again, if we're talking about a social media platform, if they flag it as AI generated and you didn't say it as such, that could be a big strike against you, especially if you continue to do it. You could end up losing your account at some point. So I say
Wow.
follow their rules. Absolutely.
I did not know that it was that intense, but yeah, good thing I asked. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I know accounts, TikTok, Instagram, that have been taken down because they were putting up AI generated content and not disclosing that. So that's very common. All right.
I see. Thank you, Mark.
Yep, you got it, my friend. And I've been talking with Rez on the side. I've got a bug to learn how to DJ. I'm not talking about radio DJing. I've learned that. I haven't said that I've perfected it by any stretch, but I've learned that. I'm talking about music. Like actually like the 2 turntables that we see people mixing music for parties or events, etc. I'm really drawn to it, and he has that
Mark,
experience.
how about you invite me on your podcast and then I'll explain everything there.
Well, yeah, I got to see how we could tie that all in, but yeah,
Yeah,
we could make something like that work.
that
Yes,
would be amazing.
yeah.
Hey,
So
Mark, I
yes,
have a suggestion as we close out today.
please.
Let's talk about this question I saw, can one thumbnail work everywhere? Because I think that's one thing that we could take a minute and talk about, because I just throw my own experience out there. What I've got my team doing is different on audio. It's different on YouTube. It's different on LinkedIn. And I think there's value in that. Mark, how do you feel about that? Because that's one of the questions that I saw in the mailbag as we were preparing for today's show.
Look, it's this comes down to a capacity thing. How much capacity do you have as a creator to do all these different thumbnails? Ralph has the advantage of being able to farm it out to a team, and some of us don't, right? And some of us do have the advantage, if we so choose, to use something like AI to get us closer to somebody like Ralph who's paying for all of those services. But I guess my point is, if you can do it, I think it can only help. But if you can't do it, it's not like you're going to post an episode without an episode cover image and have no image at all. At the very least, it's going to default to your series image. And I'm okay with that. But if you can do it, create the individual episode images, because those pop up on the player itself. It does add something to it. I just encourage you to make sure it has a similar brand, a similar feel as your series cover art, so that people can really identify your stuff, your content, when they're finding it in various places.
And I just want to throw in there about branding, because I've wrote some notes for today. I think the thing that most podcasters under brand their stuff early, and you grow to regret that later. You know, it's really easier at the front end to build that brand from the beginning, from day one. Because if you're trying to shoehorn this thing after the fact. I think you have to somewhat be intentional about that. And Mark, the reason I brought that up is we were talking about AI. That's a great use for AI, actually, because most of the AI tools, you can say, can you repurpose this? Can you change the aspect ratio? Can you change it around a little bit? That doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a big team. That's a great use for AI. Once you get that image you like, then you can have AI taken. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I do a lot of the promotions for when we have guests on the show. I just put that into AI, to be blunt. I say, here's the guest picture. Here's our logo I want you to use. Here's what we're going to talk about on the show, and tag you're it. And AI does a really good job of putting that together. So use that tool. It doesn't cost you much if you're already paying for the AI in the first place.
Great point, Ralph. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so I think here's where we're landing after this whole conversation. I think that your artwork doesn't need to explain every detail of your show, but it should probably do a few things very well, right? It should be readable when it's small. It should give the right first impression. It should match the tone of your show. It should help people understand whether the show is for them in the first place. And it should work across the places where people actually discover you. Again, I say should work across the places where people actually discover you. And like I just said a moment ago, do what you can do, what you financially can do, what you have the physical capacity to do. And for video platforms, especially YouTube and Spotify, we probably need to think more intentionally about horizontal thumbnails. A square podcast cover and a 16:9 video thumbnail have very different jobs. The square image, it represents the show. The horizontal thumbnail often sells the episode. It's more like that billboard that Ralph was talking about. So that's where I land here, and I appreciate everybody's different insights on it and experiences with this. I think it's really helpful, and that's the beauty of this show. So listen, a reminder to you that we are not back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. New summer schedule is no Fridays, no Mondays, but every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. DR is appreciating the extra sleep in time. She was just gesturing that over here on the video. So come join us Tuesday, 8. I do it every day this week. 8 a.m. Eastern time. Are you looking for a button to press,
Words
Rob?
are hard in the morning. Did I say that out loud?
So come join us, and you can do that at podcastingmorningshow.com/join us. And don't worry, the evaluation series is coming back. The spotlight series is coming back. And I'm going to look for ways to incorporate Money Mondays again. And also, of course, Friday wins from the week. Since we don't have Fridays, I still want to celebrate with everybody. So I'm going to figure out a way that we can incorporate all that in. And until Tuesday, make it a great weekend, everybody. Take care. Awesome.